Welcome to our viewers on public television here in America and also around the globe. The funerals have taken place in Paris and in Jerusalem for 7 of the people killed in last week's attack in the French capital. In a solemn ceremony for the 3 police officers who lost their lives, President Hollande said they had died so that France could live in freedom. And in a sign of defiance, the magazine Charlie Hebdo is releasing a new edition with a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad on the cover. The BBC's Lucy Williamson has the latest.
They say freedom has a price. This was the price it forced on France. 3 police officers killed along with 14 other people in Islamist attacks last week. And for the highest price, they received France's highest honour, the Légion d'honneur, pinned to their coffins by the head of state. Their sacrifice enough to move not just their relatives, but their prime minister, and their president too. His gentleness, a stark contrast to the way they died.
Je vous exprime ma gratitude.
I express my gratitude and also my pride. Because of you, with you, France is still standing. Long live the Republic. Long live France.
Et vive la France.
Another reminder emerged today of police courage during the attacks. This footage of the first 2 gunmen revelling in what they'd done. The freedoms they died for are being called on again this week by Charlie Hebdo's surviving staff. Working out of temporary offices, they've put together the next edition of the magazine. The print run is 50 times its normal circulation. The cartoon chosen for the front cover shows the Prophet Muhammad holding a sign which reads, "Je suis Charlie," and the words, "All is forgiven." At a press conference before tomorrow's publication, the artist responsible for the drawing said there is no but when it comes to freedom of speech. One of his colleagues told me the team had drawn on their own grief for inspiration this week. If we can laugh at everything, even our own trauma, she said, why should Islam be excluded?
We are not obsessed by Muhammad. We don't draw him more than the Pope or Nicolas Sarkozy. I mean, but why do people ask us as a the French journalist team to respect something that is inside Islam, that belongs to Islam?
"I am Charlie" has become a nationwide slogan now, but many of the magazine's defenders see it as provocative and crass. It's not the views of Charlie Hebdo they're defending, they say, but the principle of free speech itself.
Il l'a fait une fois, il y a eu des problèmes, il continue.
They did this once before, they caused some problems. There are some values in life you just don't touch.
Bizarre avec les enfants.
Islam today avoids using any image of the Prophet Muhammad, and the biting satire of Charlie Hebdo has deepened the wound for some. But several Muslim leaders have supported the magazine's right to publish.
Au fait qu'on ait, nous en France, la chance de pouvoir être libre.
In France, we have the chance to be free, to say what we like, even at the risk of offending our Prophet. The most important part of the Prophet's teaching are to do with freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, and freedom of expression.
C'est la liberté de conscience, c'est la liberté religieuse, et c'est la liberté d'expression.
In Parliament, the Marseillaise was sung in unison. For the first time, it's thought, in almost 100 years. They were here to vote on strikes against jihadists in the Middle East, the anthem that's united France for centuries, comforting in the face of new threats at home. Today, 10,000 security forces are moving into place across their nation as France absorbs a new kind of sadness, that freedom here requires so many guns. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Paris.
A day of mourning in Paris, and meanwhile the 4 people who died in the attack on a kosher supermarket in Paris have been buried in Jerusalem. Senior politicians joined the hundreds of people who came to honour the dead. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the mourners that the victims had returned to their true homes, but their lives had been cut down by hatred. Our Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen was there.
Not long before dawn, the men's bodies were brought here from Paris. France has the biggest Jewish community in Europe, with strong links to Israel. Their funerals were held in Jerusalem. One of the four, Johan Cohen, worked in the kosher supermarket that was attacked. The others, Yoav Hatab, Philippe Braham, and Francois Michel Sada, were shopping on the eve of the Jewish Sabbath.
Philippe, protège-moi, protège.
Protect me, Philippe, said his widow, Valérie. After the condolences, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the mourners that radical Islam was the enemy not just of Israel, but of the whole world. The European Jews who founded modern Israel believed they had to rely on themselves for protection. Bad times for Jews abroad often means more immigrants for Israel. In this country, that's seen as a transfusion of strength. Mark and Gary Buchwald traveled from Paris to mourn their friend Francois Michel Sada.
On Sunday there was a huge demonstration, you know, something magnificent, but the fact is it looks, you know, it looked like a party. What's going on after that?
Somebody told me last night that the only Jews that survived the World War II horror were the pessimists. So I think it's maybe safer to be pessimistic than over-optimistic. But we don't have any reason to be over-optimistic.
The killings in Paris have sharpened old fears that are buried deep inside many Jews, and that's because of a long history of persecution, especially in Europe. And all that feeds into one of the founding beliefs here in Israel, which is that the country has to stay strong, that it can't afford to let down its guard.
The four men were buried next to each other. Israel's Prime Minister has been criticized by some here for exploiting their deaths to look strong ahead of elections in March. But in Israel, when Jews are killed just because they're Jews, here or abroad, their deaths often create political consequences, as well as personal tragedies. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Remembering the four men who were killed in that kosher supermarket in Paris. Well, a short time ago, I spoke with Shmuel Herzfeld. He's the rabbi of Washington's Ohev Shalom National Synagogue, also the founder of the National Capital Jewish Law Center. Rabbi Herzfeld, last summer you traveled to France and you described the Jewish community in France as feeling under siege. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I meant by that was a lot of the liberties and the confidence that I take for granted being in America. For example, the fact that I can wear my yarmulke on my head and that I could walk to synagogue on Saturday morning with a clear identification as a Jew. I was very clearly told that that was not acceptable. And I was told we were not allowed to wear a yarmulke in the street. I could not wear my prayer shawl in the streets of Paris
not
on
allowed
Saturday.
Under law, or just that
I was told that the police said that we cannot wear it, and if we do wear it and we're attacked, that it would be considered incitement on our part, and so therefore the police told us not to wear our yarmulkes.
And did the French Jews that you were speaking to during your trip feel that the situation was getting worse?
The French Jews that I spoke with felt that the situation was out of control. This is a community where people told me that they were afraid to have any presence at all, for example, on Facebook, because they could be tracked down and attacked. And this is a community that they told me the question was not should they leave France, but how can they get everybody out?
And yet, Rabbi, we have members of the French government, the Prime Minister, saying this week that France without its Jews will not be France anymore, and that they want to, and we've seen the big turnout of security forces this week, that they want to protect their Jewish population.
Well, they should want to protect, and that's a nice statement on the part of the French government, but the French Republic should not be saved on the backs of the Jewish people, and the French government is unable to protect the Jewish people. That's the fault of the French government. It's not the fault of the innocent Jews of France. And the fact that they have the army out protecting them is a nice gesture, but who really believes that it's going to be like that forever? And the attacks upon the Jewish people need to be understood that this is not just one attack upon the kosher supermarket. This is part of a series of ongoing attacks for many years now, and we feel that they're just going to get worse, and the situation is not getting better but getting worse.
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen is that the Jewish community who wants to stay there, they should be protected, but we also, as a world, need to help those Jews who want to leave France leave safely, and we need to be a safe haven for them. Many years ago, during World War II, too many countries in the world watched as Jews were brutally murdered in Europe. We cannot let that happen again. Israel is here today, and they have graciously offered to welcome in the Jews of France, but Jews should not be forced to flee to Israel in order to be safe. Other countries should step up, and the United States of America should step up and say, we want to welcome the Jews to our country. President Obama made a big mistake by not going to that rally in Paris. He should show leadership here. He should stand up and say, we're not going to make this mistake again. We're going to allow the Jews to enter into our country.
Rabbi Herzfeld, thanks very much for coming in.
It's my honor.
And a quick look at other news now from around the world.